James Cleverly, you've got a couple of councils back in England, but your vote share's halved. You're down from 31 to 12 seats in Holyrood. You're in fourth place in Wales. Not much for you to crow about after Thursday, is there?
Well, it was in a number of places a disappointing result. It's always painful when you lose good colleagues, whether they be in Wales, Scotland, or in local councils across England. And you know, that's something we take seriously. But we've also got to recognise that the figures that you quoted there were measured against a post-COVID vaccine high point. We've made ground since this time last year, whereas Reform, for example, have a lower share of vote than they did this time last year. We know there's a lot of work to do, but we are heading in the right direction. And amongst those results, we regained Westminster Council. We're now also in control of Wandsworth Council. We retained London Borough of Bexley, which was a Reform target. It is a mixed picture.
All right.
But we can absolutely see our road back to government, both nationally and locally.
I think, though, one thing that seems to have changed for me about this is that you aren't competitive in parts of the north at the moment. You're being trounced in the east of England. You're in fourth place in Scotland and Wales, as I said. Your leader's essentially now the junior partner to Mr Farage. Something has changed in the country. Is it time for you just to start recognising the reality and accept that you're going to have to do some kind of deal or some kind of understanding with Farage?
Look, the way people vote in local elections is very different to the way people vote in national elections. And I know we all do this. We all do this every set of local elections.
Yeah,
where people say, if this was replicated, it never is replicated.
Oh, I don't think that's entirely true. And you always say that. But this was really a very big test. And actually, the point I've just made was better demonstrated in local elections that actually there are parts of the country in which you are not competitive. Isn't it time you just started to recognise that?
So we go into every election with a plan to win those elections. And I think going into an election with some future deal at the back of your mind is really, really counterproductive. So we will present a Conservative agenda to the British people, ensuring the economy gets back on track, leaving the ECHR so we can control our borders and take proper control of our laws, supporting businesses, making sure that we support the people that work rather than people who are just seeking a life on benefits. That is a Conservative agenda. We will put that forward, and I think that as we come to future elections, that will be increasingly popular. But what we're not going to do is we're not going to reinforce some of the talking points of other political parties, because, of course, they want to talk down our chances. But the numbers are demonstrating we're heading back in the right direction under Kemi, and that actually, and a really, really big point on this, whether it's the Greens or Reform, what we've seen where they have been elected is they really struggle to actually govern. And the election result is not the end of the process, it's the start of the process.
Well, let me ask you about that.
And this time next year, I think we'll be having a very different
Well, let me ask you about that, because tomorrow morning, councillors are going to be sworn in. Mm-hmm. And in some places, there's a large number of councillors have gone into no overall control. What are you telling your councillors? Are you going to forbid them from forming coalitions with Reform locally?
We're not going to do coalitions with Reform or other political parties. Well,
you have done before. What suddenly changed?
Well, because
what
we're not going to do is we're not going to help other political parties damage the local area. And you look at places like Kent, where Reform have taken control.
No, stop. Because you've had coalitions with Lib Dems, you've had coalitions with others locally. Are you now saying that you're going to tell your local councillors, if they can form a stable administration with Reform councillors, that they may not do so?
Our plan is to make sure that we protect the people of the country from bad government. And we do that by holding the government to a...
But does that preclude... Does bad government mean working in coalition with Reform or not?
Well,
Are you forbidding them or not?
So our position has been the same as it's been in every election, which is depending on local circumstances, and it's impossible for me to play out every particular scenario, but we've always said that local Conservative leadership needs to check in with the party, essentially. We're not going to prop up administrations that do what they did in Worcestershire, for example, by putting up council tax by 9% or massively increasing the councillor allowance.
But you keep using this as an opportunity to tell me how awful reform is, rather than telling me what...
Because that is true.
That's fine.
And look,
you told me that 3 times.
And I don't want my party,
but you're not telling me yes or no. So what I'm getting is...
No, it's like the default position
you will go
is
into coalition reform.
No, Trevor, the default position is no. The default position is no.
OK, that's clear. Let me ask you about something very straightforward about you. London mayoralty is coming up. One of the consequences of what we saw on Thursday is that it seems that London is no longer a red city and there are opportunities. And some people think that under the new voting system that's coming in London, the Tories could have a serious chance, and that you would be the candidate to deliver that chance.
Well, that's having your name put forward, having your name discussed around things like this is it's very flattering. And I've said, I've been really consistent on this, and my name has been talked about a number of times over the last couple of sets of elections. Look, London is too important to just lazily disregard it and just say, no, I'm not interested, because it is really, really important. And of course, both when I was chairman of the party, now I'm involved as a shadow local government secretary, making sure that we as a party take London seriously and get it right is a really important precondition for future success. So, of course, that is something I think about. But the simple truth of the matter is that there is a fantastic job that I've got as the MP for Braintree. I love that. No, look, and I love that. And look, the really easy thing to do is what a lot of politicians do, which is to say never, 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 and then 6 months later go, oh, I changed my mind.
OK, but if the city called, you might be available. One last very quick question. There's people are saying that there's chaos in Labour, rather reminiscent of some years that you experienced in Conservative administration. What advice have you got for Labour MPs right now?
Well, look, it took us 10 years before we really got into that bloodlust of deposing sitting prime ministers. The Labour Party seemed to have done that in less than 2 years, so very impressive pace there. Look, my opinion is when you realise, as we did with Liz, when you realise that you've got a prime minister that is not going to be a credible proposition going into a general election, the best thing to do is to remove that person, which is what we did when it was obvious that Liz was not going to work. I think the Labour Party needs to grow a backbone and make a decision, either keep him or ditch him.
Jump now. James Cleverly, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Cheers.